Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Three Flat Caps and a Whippet, a show with three blokes, usually in flat caps, just showing that it's good to talk with the occasional tedious link to mental health. It's really just a little bit of group supervision for us, so apologies to you, Danica, who is our Whippet. I've got joining me, as always, I've got Luke.
Hi.
All right, Luke.
I'm good.
And I've got John.
You all right?
Yeah, and our Whippet joining us this podcast is Danica. You all right, Danica?
I am. I've never been referred to as a Whippet. I take that.
Yeah.
Quite fast, isn't it?
So for anybody who doesn't know, the Whippet is obviously the guest, Three Flat Caps and a Whippet. It's not in any way, shape or form describing you. It's just that's what we decided.
It's not a derogatory term.
No.
Anyway.
We'll do
no, but like I would take that as a good term.
Yeah.
I'm fast, aren't I? Whippets are fast. That would mean I'd be fast.
We'll go for our usual kind of catch-ups. Either of you two want to start? Let us know what you've had going off since the last session, if there's anything popping up.
Can do, yeah. We're mainly looking at safeguarding, so there's a lot of risk assessments going on, a lot of things around the school in terms of social distancing, what we can actually provide as schools, to how many children, to how it's going to be formatted, whether it's from September even we're thinking now, so whether it be half days, full days, 2 days, weekly, 3 days, when the deep cleans will be, how the bubbles are going to work. So it's just been pretty mental, really. But actually, for my well-being, it's just good to be back in the building more often, to be honest.
Yeah, I found that being back in this last couple of weeks, even with it just being with Luke.
You sure it's good for your well-being?
Yeah, I don't know if that's good for my well-being, but
it's good for anybody's well-being, that.
I've quite liked being, like saying, physically back in the building and having a little bit more of a routine. What about at home? Anything interesting going off at home? You were getting your garden seeded and sown, your grass, I think, the last time.
Oh, mate, my garden is the enemy of the row. We're sat in front of a green screen. We're doing this virtually, so if you hear any noises and stuff in the background, it's because we're recording across Zoom. Other things are available. But there's a green screen behind me, and it's nowhere near as green as my lawn.
You can see that behind us, can't you, Danica?
Yeah.
That's
looking lovely.
That's a bit pale and pasty, is that behind me?
What about you, Luke?
I'm enjoying I wouldn't say freedom, but the restrictions being lifted slightly. So personally, obviously, I think I mentioned this last time, I've acquired a motorcycle and I've been enjoying the fact that we can now pretty much go anywhere other than leave the country, just for sort of a bit of respite. So I've been taking myself to some nice viewing points like top of Leeds Bradford Airport. Other airports are available. I've been taking myself to some.
Not for now.
Not for now. No.
Not for now.
I've been getting myself out a little bit on the bike and just enjoying just a bit of freedom, really, and that openness. It's been nice to have. I had my dad in the garden the other day, so it was nice to sort of let him see Roxanne and the rest of the family. So that's been a welcome sort of change to the lockdown rules. Again, like Jacob, another change in terms of work is the fact that we've been able to access our office, really, or the space where we do most of our work from. It's just been nice to get, even albeit within 2 meters of someone, it's been nice to get close to people again.
That's it now. It's physical distance, not social distance.
That's it. Yeah, it is. So yeah, I'm feeling good, and I'm sort of enjoying everything, all the challenges that we're facing at the minute, and yeah, it's good.
I think for me, it's been nice to get back into the swing of things with rugby. I've been doing a little bit of kind of circuits and training and stuff with the lads, and kind of structured it a bit and timetabled it and stuff. So it's been nice, albeit painful. So we've got Danica on our show this week. This week, I'm going to have to stop saying that. Yeah, that's the new term, I think. Do you want to introduce yourself and just let people know a little bit about yourself? And obviously, one of the things that people may know is that obviously you are a rugby player as well, so that might be a good place to start.
Yeah, I am from the other code though, so it's like being across the Pennines, isn't it? You're Lancashire and I'm Yorkshire in terms of rugby codes. I play rugby league for Leeds Rhinos. I'm prop forward, but I'm also here at Springwell North. I'm back in the swing of things, back in routine, absolutely loving it. Although I've got to say, I am very tired. I forgot what working full time and getting up was like. So it's brilliant though. I love being back in, and actually physically getting in the classroom and teaching again is just, it's a bit scary. Do you remember how to do it? But I do seem to be going all right. And Yeah, we're still training virtually at the minute for Leeds. We've got a Zoom strength and conditioning session tonight. I've got to get my rucksack packed up for 10 kilos for some other part of it. And then we can start to kind of meet remotely now, which is good. So when you're doing your interval running, at least I can do it with somebody 2 meters away, screaming at me to carry on rather than crying on my own and trying to get through it. But yeah, just back into it and keeping busy, which is bonus.
So how did you get into rugby? I think that's probably a question that's not just me would like to know.
Well, I actually played rugby when I was in year 6 or something with all the lads. With my teacher, and he works around here now. I don't know, somewhere in Eden, I think. But then, obviously, back in the day, I'm a bit older than I care to admit sometimes. But then there was nothing for women or girls then. So I went to university up in York and said I want to do something that's maverick, because I was actually a dancer before, which I thought you can't get much end of the spectrum to rugby and dance. So I was a classically trained ballet dancer. Yeah. I think it was just a dumb thing, wasn't it? Girls do ballet, boys do football. So yeah, did that. Did a few shows. Like I've danced at the Royal Albert Hall, Disneyland Paris. Like I wasn't just a dancer that went to a school. I did it for a fair few years, and then went to university. Decided I needed something different. Joined the rugby union team. So I was a rah-rah initially. Joined for the social side and did all right. Managed to ended up joining the team. So joined West Park in Bramhope in Leeds. Played for Yorkshire, then captained Yorkshire. Got into North of England squad, and then what you call the 44, which was then the 44 top players, which then compete for England position, and then snapped my ankle. I snapped 3 ligaments in my ankle, and kind of came back 18 months later, a little bit overweight, a little bit more, this is going to be social. And then the England coach, 2015, the Rugby League England coach came along and said, do you fancy playing Rugby League? And I laughed at him because I was a big, heavy prop in rugby union at the time. And that was February 15. And by the July 15, so 5 years ago this week, made my debut for England Rugby League.
Wow.
And that's basically how it happened. A very, very fast transition. So I played rugby union for about 5 years, and then I'm 5 years in rugby league now.
Wow.
Crazy.
Just thinking about what you're saying about snapping your ankle. What was that like for you, and what sort of things were going through your mind when that went off? As obviously you said, that incline of or that transition was quite steep, and to get to that kind of point and then for something like that to happen, what was going through your mind at that sort of time?
It's really weird because I don't really remember how I felt at the time, because I was in university still as well. So as much as training really hard, I was missing out on all the, I think it was like the final year of uni maybe. And so it came at kind of a welcome time in a weird way, because I was doing my dissertation, I needed more time, and I saw it more of a positive rather than a negative. And then I could carry on being a true traditional student every Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday, as it is. So, yeah. So I think actually it was a perfect time. I mean, I'm sure we'll speak about it, but I snapped my ACL in 2017 just before I started for the World Cup, and that completely ruined me mentally. I absolutely lost it. So I'd be playing, having an injury at the pinnacle of my career. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to overcome, which I think is quite a bold statement. Now, I don't have children, so I've never had that kind of pressure of being a parent or anything like that. So yeah, snapping my ACL, or tore my ACL 14 weeks before I flew to the World Cup. That was pretty intense and stressful, but I'm sure we'll touch further on that.
Yeah,
in terms of pressure.
It might be a good time. I mean, if it's all right with you, just to kind of explain how that happened and set the scene a little bit about the game, potentially, because a lot of our listeners potentially won't know, obviously, the game that you were in or how that happened, if that's all right.
Yeah, so initially I was playing for Bradford Bulls at the time, which is quite ironic because it's the rival of Leeds, but it's a very kind of loose Super League for the women. We were trying a new kind of tier of competition to kind of promote for this World Cup, and it was 2017, so the World Cup year. And in the July, we'd flown out to France, and I probably played the best 2 games of rugby for England. And the England coach said to me, "Continue on this form, and you've got a starting shirt in the World Cup in November." So I was like, absolutely brilliant. Came back, and then 10 days later, he came to a club test session. The last minute, I got tackled. Notoriously quite difficult to get down, so it takes 3 or 4 girls. So more often used as tackle tech. And then I tore my ACL just partially. I say partially, but it was quite horrendous. But then went to the surgeon, and he said, "Look, I'll try and sew it together. You've got 6 weeks to prove to me you're fit enough. and then you have to prove that you can get on the plane. So had the operation, he fastened me back together, literally stitched my ACL back together so I didn't have a reconstruction. And then from the operating theatre to getting on the plane was exactly 14 weeks.
Wow.
So then flew out to Australia, amazing. I was in the World Cup, and then came back and signed for Leeds Rhinos. And Headingley Stadium is my favourite stadium in the whole wide world. And it was May 27th, and we were playing for Headingley Stadium for the first time ever. Again, on a bit of a roll, playing a really good game. I think we were 24-12 up, and I had to help set up 3 of the tries. 65th minute, got tackled, not a nasty tackle, and then this. I don't know if anybody's ever torn a ligament, but it makes a noise. It sounds like a gun going off, and I knew straight away. It was a little bit weaker anyway, and that was it. So yeah, 2018 snapped that, and I want to say something really dramatic, like my life literally crumbled, but it did feel like a hole opened up. And the only way I've ever been able to describe it is I would rather if somebody died, because you're allowed to mourn that, if that makes sense. You're allowed to mourn somebody's death, aren't you? Yeah. Whereas with an injury like an ACL, which is potentially career-ending, people just say to you, oh, you'll be all right, oh, you'll come back, don't worry about it, it's fine. And you're kind of not allowed to cry or be upset about it. And then it took me 3 months to get my operation. So I had my operation on my birthday, which is 11th of September. Going to note that down.
Yeah.
Drop that one. So essentially got my new ACL for my birthday, and then 8 months and 3 weeks after my operation, a year to doing it, May the 26th, 2019, I made my comeback after probably the hardest journey of my life.
I don't think you should underestimate the effect that snapping something like that has on your mental health, especially when you're playing at a sport at a high level like yourself. I'm only an amateur footballer, but I snapped my ACL as well. There was a few nodding heads in this room when you were talking about snapping your ACL. I snapped mine, and I remember that instant. You said that feeling, it'd be easier to mourn somebody than that feeling that you've got. I was 26 when I did my ACL, and I genuinely thought I will never play football ever again. And that pit that I felt in my stomach, that emptiness, and for that full year when I was in recovery, I was a bit of a shambles, really. And literally just from that one injury, it made me feel horrendous.
I've not done it. Any tendon, touch wood, any tendons, or mine was a hamstring. So someone played a through ball, I was playing up front, I ran through, my right hamstring completely went. So I started to slow down, but as I was hopping on my left leg, my left one went, not as bad. But so I had like a grade, I had like a grade 2 tear on my left, but my right one was, I mean, the back of my leg was just black with the bruise and the blood. I had about 18 months physio. Actually, I don't know if you'd know, because it was Karen May. She was a Bradford Lions physio, and she was based up at Cookridge when I did it. But that was when I was 16. That was a lot of years ago. So yeah, I went to see Karen May.
I've heard of from the system.
And then that was that. But yeah, what sort of I mean, I've got a sort of obviously some understanding of the pressure of trying to get back on a field again after something like that, and obviously Luke has as well. But how because you're playing at such a higher level, what sort of pressures were you going through? Because you said it was 8 months and 3 weeks after the operation.
Yeah, not that was counting.
Yeah, well, yeah, but and that's the thing, and that's another testament, I think, to just how much it plays a part. You do remember those things. I mean, I remember it was 18 months of on and off physio and doing things in between, getting told at the beginning I was stood and walked like a Neanderthal man because of my back and my hamstrings pulled so tight. What sort of pressure did you put on yourself, or did you think or perceive that the pressure was on you from your club or your coaches to get back to full fitness?
Well, I think when I just tore it before the World Cup, I went into kind of a very selfish, very driven training mode. And I think the rehab then was fine. But when I actually did my ACL and I was just playing for Leeds, people said to me, you've been in the World Cup now, you've played at the highest level, why don't you give it up? Why don't you coach now? And I've grown up with 3 brothers, and I'm not very good at being told what to do. And I think the pressure that I put on myself was to prove people wrong, more so than get back to the game, because I didn't, I'm 35 now, so I don't really need to play. I am considered quite very old in the sport. So I've only been back a year. So I didn't need to play again, and people were right. But I don't think for me, it's that what if I hadn't tried? Would I always think, what would I like if I could play again? Or So I think I had to play again just to see if I wanted to or if I could, or the mental kind of hurdle of getting over the injury and playing again, just stepping out, just to trust yourself.
Yeah.
So trust your leg, trust yourself, trust people around you. Are you still any good? Can you still play? Can you still run? So that I put a lot more pressure on myself rather than the coaches and stuff like that. And the support I got from Leeds Rhinos was incredible. I think I only missed 2 training sessions, and that was the Tuesday I had the operation and the Thursday after. And by the Sunday, I was back out on the side of the field watching them play.
Wow.
So in the whole time, I only missed 2 training sessions because and it wasn't a case of I'm really dedicated, I want to prove that I am. It was more of a, what am I missing out on? B, I need the rehab and I need the gym. And C, I want to make sure that I understand every play they're doing, every move they're making. So when I do get out there, I still understand everything. And it was never
character and professionalism, because it's so painful recovering from an ACL injury. So hats off to you for getting back into the fold and putting the pressure on yourself to get back into the fold.
Yeah, I think that's the only way. It's a focus thing, isn't it? You need a goal. Like I need a goal, and now, especially now with the Super League being suspended, I'm really struggling to train because I've got no idea. I haven't got a date of when I'm coming back. Yeah. So my training has really taken a hit. Maybe because it's the first time I had a proper off season. I don't know, but just having that goal of, and I knew I wanted to get back under the year or within the year. So May 26th, 27th was always my kind of goal to get back as well, which they told me 9 months. So Ryan Hall and Callum Watkins, who both played for Leeds, did their ACLs around the same time as me. And I got back and successfully got back a week before Ryan Hall did and continued to play. Well, I think Callum was back early, but he only played 1 game before he had to take another 4 weeks off.
Ryan Hall came. Massive ACLs though. That guy's legs are absolutely.
Don't take us away from the fact that I beat them both back to playing. All right. Yeah, but he has got the most ridiculously sized legs in the world. So yeah, that was just that goal driven, I think. And once you've got a goal and you've got a date, then it makes it a little bit easier to carry on, doesn't it?
Just picking up on what you're saying there about not having a target or a goal at the moment. Obviously, with what's going off with the current climate and COVID and everything. Similar sort of story to yours, I suppose. My partner, Francesca, she comes from a dancing background, but Irish dancing rather than ballet, and she competed at a really high level at that, 3 times world champion and all that sort of business. She got kind of bullied by her friends to start playing rugby union with us at Barnsley, and then she's now gone over to Trinity and started playing for Trinity. There's a bit more of a challenge in it. Well, there's another challenge. I know he's got Luke sticking his thumbs down because he doesn't like it.
I'm a Rhinos fan.
But obviously, I live with her.
I cannot wait for that game.
Yeah, that'd be good. Well, I'll be there.
We'll be on your team.
What position does she play?
Well, she's obviously just transitioning. She's really good though. She's playing wing and fullback. I think they wanted to play fullback, nice. But we'll see. She's quite athletic and fast, so she tries to use that.
You're giving Danica insider tips here.
Yeah.
I'll turn up with me Leeds Rhino shirt on.
It's all right. We can keep going. What I suppose what I was trying to say is that she's saying the same sort of thing, and she's really struggling with the kind of the fact that the league's being suspended and whatnot. They're doing the same thing, doing training and all that sort of business, but losing the motivation and the focus openly, honestly, because you don't know what's happening. What sort of things are you doing, or what things have you done when you've had your injuries that keep you kind of pushing forwards, or even when you don't have that specific goal, what sort of things do you do to keep yourself hooked into it?
Well, I've got no option at the minute because we've, as much as we're not professional, Leeds Rhinos have been very particular about us keeping up our training. So we have training plans sent out every Monday. We've got to all download an app. We have to log it when we've done the workout. If you don't log it, you basically say your name in the middle of a group, and you're being made accountable for everything that you do at the minute, which is great. It's just hard to, especially now the weather's turned, and get yourself out. So tonight we've got to go for a 3 or 5K run at 6:00, and then at 6:30 we've got a Zoom strength and conditioning session. which lasts about an hour. And because we don't get to do them through the week as often or as intently, they're actually really difficult sessions, and I'll feel it tomorrow. But and then Saturdays is a 3K time trial to make sure that it's like a bit of a fitness testing thing to carry on checking that we are improving. So we're being made accountable as a group. And like if just say the league resumes and we go back in July, August for pre-season, it's a case of we haven't been given shirts or squad numbers yet. Nobody's been decided who starts or anything like that. We haven't had a pre-season game or anything. So everything's still up for grabs for us. So I guess in a way that's my motivation that I do have to hold on to every now and then. And I got given the heritage number 8, and our shirt number last season was number 8. And the likelihood of me keeping that this season with the new girls coming through the England squad is quite slim. But my motivation now is to be in the best possible shape to compete for that. So that I know when the number 8 shirt's been given to one of the other prop girls that's coming through in the England squad, at least I know I don't mind it going to somebody that's better than me, if that makes sense. Yeah, as long as we've both worked hard. I'm a bit kind of relaxed in this, not relaxed because I'm not relaxed because I'm highly strung about training and getting out there, but I'm happy about the shirt goes as long as the shirt's earned and whoever's wearing it has earned it, then that's fine. So, but I still want it. It's my shirt. I'll be fuming. I'm probably going to be number 23 now. I'm not the oldest in the squad now, and they're like weaning me out. But I still, that's my motivation to keep going, and that's how we kind of keep going. I'm glad we do have that. I think we have a lot more than other clubs do, which are great. Do you say grateful for? Because sometimes not so much.
I suppose.
But that's what we get. That's it.
One last question I'd ask you before we kind of move on to how you got into teaching in SEMH specifically is, is there an emphasis on kind of well-being and checking in with you with the rugby side of things? Because when I've listened to things in the past, one of the reasons that we started this is because I listened to a couple of different podcasts and I thought there was obviously, well, I wanted to chat with these and offload more than anything, but on one of the ones that I listened to, I don't know if you listened to it, House of Rugby, they spoke about in the England setup, I think it was, again, it's union obviously, but the emphasis that over the kind of last 10 years has changed in a sense of checking in with players on physically how they are. So like on a rating scale, they'd check in with how they are physically in terms of injuries or how they feel energy-wise and all that sort of stuff. But also how that's changed in terms of checking in emotionally and kind of with well-being as well. Is there an emphasis on that in your sport and your code and stuff?
Yeah, hugely. So in the England setup, every morning, if you're in England camp, every morning is, let's say, 8:30. We call it the well-being check-in. So you fill in an online, it's a bit like a Google Docs type of thing. So every morning you fill it in and then it kind of collects all the data and stuff and it accounts for you over the week. But it's how have you slept? How are you feeling? Any aches and pains anywhere? Any thoughts thinking about? Do you need to speak to somebody? And England do that. Well, that's the England setup, as well as your normal testing every morning. So that was a morning check, and you had to do it in the morning. And if you did, well, you just didn't not do it because it wasn't even worth the side effects from the coach for that. But then at Leeds Rhinos, we're really lucky, I think, because we're under the umbrella of Leeds Rhinos and not the community teams. We have a wellbeing guy there who's specifically there for wellbeing and kind of counselling and stuff. A guy called Fats, and well, he's not called Fats, but that's what we call him. And he's there for anything. So in terms of, like, it could be rugby related, it could be general life related. We've got access to him. We've got his phone number. So he dropped us a message saying, look, how's it going? And how's lockdown treating? And I was like, I'm not made for lockdown. I feel like I'm made to work in this kind of school setting because I need to be active. I need to keep going. I need to be out. I'm very social. I like doing. My weeks are always packed with seeing people or training or doing things. So it was the first few weeks I was like, I don't really know what to do myself. I can't sit and watch a TV series or anything like that, and he was just brilliant for that. So that he was awesome. And I can't thank Leeds enough that we have access to him. And the same thing now with Sporting Chance, which is just a general sports kind of counsellor for any kind of sport. They gave us the start of the Super League, well, the launch of the Super League. They come and everyone takes their number. And again, you've got access to them at any point you want. And it's literally, you can decide whether you want to text them and talk to them via text or you want to speak to somebody, which is amazing. So I think the women's side of things as well, they've really kicked off and really had this focus on well-being, because let's face it, I mean, as much as I'm a woman, I'll admit it, we love a bit of drama and a bit of, you know, the women are not afraid to hide their emotions, are they? So there's a lot more going on, and like we've got parents, we've got women with kids and stuff like that, so they have different pressures and things like that. And then before the World Cup, my England coach said, you don't back yourself enough, you need to realise you deserved a place. And I had a lot of, I mean, my road into rugby league wasn't easy, and I was a rugby union girl who just came, got named within a month, got named in the England development squad. 3 months later, I've named in the England team. So I've had a lot of stick coming through rugby league. And lots of people have suggested that I made my way by favours with certain coaches and things like that. And that's how, for the first 3 years of my rugby league career, people used to see me rather than my talent for the sport. So my England coach in 2017 said, you need to see somebody about this. And so for 6 months, I had a sports psychologist, which was probably the best thing I've ever done. So I got this sports psychologist in 2017, and it wasn't anything, you know, when you've never had, I've never had counselling before, I've never spoken to anybody. So you always have that kind of, I've grown up with 3 brothers in a very, you hide your feelings, you hide your emotions, you don't speak about stuff kind of environment. And so I was thinking that we have to sit on a couch, put my feet up, he's going to tell me stuff. And it wasn't like that at all. It was a lot of drawing on a whiteboard, like 2 columns, write down what you're good at rugby, what things you're good at in rugby. So I'd write them down. What things you're not so good at, and I'd write them down. And then he basically just married the 2 off. He's like, well, you contradicted yourself here. Give me an example of this. Or, and then he gave me some like sheets to do, like these emotional board sheets to do, how I felt after a game, or rate myself so I could take that to the next session. And it got to a point where I was like, I finally, and I think it was about 4 weeks before I went to the World Cup, I finally was like, I deserve to be going to a World Cup. And he was like, right, my job here is done. See you later. And I'm like, Ross, don't leave me. Like, come back. And then Ross has then come on board at Leeds Rhinos. So he is the psychologist for the women's, the men's and the academy teams as well now. So somebody that I really trust and I know I can talk to, and I know somebody who knows me really well. It's that really nice feeling of having somebody there to chat. And it was just by chance that he's come to Leeds Rhinos. So yeah, best thing I ever did. And it was nice to believe that I actually deserved to go to a World Cup.
That's it. That's great. So you've alluded to before, like the biggest thing that you're missing at the minute is the relationships, the spending time with people, the being out and about, the being active. And then you've just mentioned something there about trust. Do you think that these are some of the reasons why you've gone into sort of the SEMH side of teaching? Because obviously with us 3 sat here and you sat at the other end, we know that within teaching, relationships and trust is massive anyway, but within SEMH we have, you know, a really, really sort of vast experience of how much more that matters to these children that we deal with. So going back to the original question, because I see we procrastinated, is that link and that sort of experience with trust and that the relationship sort of side of the things that you've done prior to teaching an SEMH, was that a big part of, do you think, even subconsciously, of you going into this career profession?
Yeah, massively. Absolutely. So I was in mainstream before the World Cup and during the World Cup, and the pressure there I was head of PE at a large academy chain in Bradford. And when I came back, I just got things thrown at me. And we had a small branch there of kind of like I can't remember what the hub was called, but it was my favourite place to be. You know, when you were having a rough day, you go spend an hour down there, and whether I was reading, doing maths or whatever. And I realised that's what I wanted to do, and that's where my forte was. I love teaching, but I'm not very good at teaching really academically bright children because of the way I teach, I think. I'm much more of I like to chat, I like to go off on a bit of a tangent, I like to relate things back, and I understand the pressures of academics and teaching in high achieving academies where it just needs to be the content of the lesson, the content of the exam, and that's it. And I don't think you build a rapport really or relationship with students because the pressure on you to teach and the pressure on them to learn is just too great. If it's like a normal day, and obviously we're not in this COVID lockdown, I'll flip between pods and it's not because I want to go and sit and chat to the teachers, because I want to go and sit and chat and like play rugby with the kids, or I might teach them maths, or I might do a bit of art, a bit of dancing, a bit of just relieving somebody else and running around, and maybe just a big kid at heart, maybe. And I think that's a massive part of working here. So I know, especially them coming back now, it's quite, I don't know if you find it where you are, but it's quite an overwhelming clinical environment to be in, because it has to be, and it's not necessarily the relaxing environment that they're used to. So it's been a case of like sitting and chatting to them, and then they're starting to make a joke now of, we'll change classes over, they'll do a different lesson. They'll be like, wait, I am dirty, I may be carrying, I need to go wash my hands now. And that kind of camaraderie, and they're now relaxing the environment, and they're taking the mick out of. And I think being able to make them feel comfortable like that is a massive part of what I do. And I forget how much I love teaching. It's only been 12 weeks, and I am tired. I'm not going to deny any of that, but I'm also much happier. It's brilliant being back. As much as we've only got a small bunch of kids back here now, you can see how much happier they are being in a routine. And I think that just makes it, I've worked in a couple of schools, alternative provisions and things. And yeah, each time I realise the importance of it. And I think more so as well, I love learning. And so I'm learning how to teach differently all the time. Yeah. And no day is ever the same, really, is it? And I think that there's structure and there's routine, but there's also that unknown every single day.
Do you think then, just like with the way that things are, it's more clinical? But what I've noticed sort of in my end is some of the children who maybe would have dysregulated far more often are not now, because the classes are smaller and because they're finding that the nurture's there. And actually, I think, because we're talking about pressure, I think there's less pressure academically. SATs aren't happening this year and things like that. So actually what I'm seeing is children who would not normally thrive in a mainstream setting are, because of the size of the classes and because of the attachment that they're seeking, they can actually now get what they need from that. Is it been like that for you?
I totally agree. And I've set some maths work for some of the other pods that I'm not in. And it was like Adam Bell, who's a music teacher, has sent me a picture of him teaching art. It's like, I'm now going to put maths on my CV. And even he's excited that he's delivered some kind of maths lesson as well. Said he really enjoyed it. I've gone in quite loosely with the sense that we're doing maths, but it's not a very structured papers. It's not questions. It's more of this investigations and exploring stuff. And I've really enjoyed being in the classroom. I enjoy it anyway, but I've had to be like, oh no, I need to plan more work now, because although I'm not, there's no pressure to do anything like you say, the kids are more relaxed, they're more willing, they're more, there's none of that kind of distraction around, because there are smaller classes. There's practically one-to-one in some classes as well, which is great. But we're flying through work, and I'm like, this is a whole new environment, in the sense where if there were examinations and qualifications, in this next 6 weeks, I'd actually be able to get loads done with them because they're so compliant. And I think it's just a bit of routine, a bit of normality. Kids that come from lots of, from big families are now getting a bit of attention and stuff that they need. And it's just been great. I genuinely, the environment when you walk around is brilliant. I was a bit scared last week when we were setting everything up and we were drawing lines on floors and signage and stuff. And I was a bit worried, but it's working really well. And everyone seems happy, and it's just a really nice place to be. So I can't wait to start introducing a few more kids in.
Certainly a big advertisement for smaller classes, I think.
Yeah, huge.
Some of the positives forward.
Yeah, especially with mainstream. I know, like you're saying, even smaller classes in AP, it's working a treat, I think, across the board. So over the years, classes have got to 34s, 35s, 36s. I think it's definitely a big advertisement, actually, a bigger picture of education, that if we want to take the pressure off the children and the adults to achieve those better grades, then smaller classes is one way to do it.
I think I want to kind of link the two things that we've talked about, really. I think that there's not a clear split. It seems that your passion for both kind of rugby and teaching in SCMH are intertwined, which is great. But I suppose I got a twofold question, which is kind of, how do you feel pressure? And is there a difference to that in walking out on the pitch at Headingley or wherever that might be, to kind of stepping into a classroom or being in that work environment? Is there a difference in those two pressures? How do you feel that in your kind of day to day?
I think pressure for me comes in kind of two forms. One is the need to kind of succeed, but not in a sense for myself, but so on the field, obviously I've got a job in rugby. I need to do a job. I'm a prop, so my job is to big carries, game meters, and do a very small job, which is quite not easy as such, but there's not much to it. It's not very difficult. The pressure in teaching is to take a subject, take some kind of knowledge, and make sure that's taught to the children properly, and they're learning and they're being able to then. It's the retention side of it as well, isn't it? And how am I doing that? And the other side of the pressure is, are people kind of either in teaching enjoying it? Like, I am bothered whether the kids like me or not.
Yeah.
And that's a massive thing for me, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. But there've been very few, touch wood, if I'm lucky, that kids have said, I hate you, or with it not being, kind of an angered type of thing. I don't think I've been disliked by too many kids I've taught, which I'm really proud of. But also I put that pressure on myself to make sure that the way I teach and the relationships I build kind of make sure that kids enjoy being in the environment that I'm on. And also the pressure from rugby on that side is impressing, I guess it's similar, impressing the coaches enough to get selected. So am I doing enough to kind of keep people happy and impress them? So that's both. But I think in rugby, the pressure is you've got to go out there. You can do a bit of research about the team you play in. You know how to play. You've got, I'm a prop, so the pressure's off me, I would say. It's more on the organisers of the game and the halfbacks and things like that. And am I doing my job for that, however much time I'm in teaching, and especially in the setting that we're in? Have I got the right content that suits that child? Can they learn that? Is it different to somebody else? But then the other side of that is you have to go and make sure that you know how the children are feeling that day, and it's not always possible, so anything could happen. If I was to go in an environment and I was needed to help and deregulate a child, am I saying the right things? Am I doing the right things? What might work one day, what won't work the next day because they're feeling a different way, or they've got. And for me, that pressure, I would never want to do something that doesn't kind of help the situation or help the child mostly. And I think that's the biggest pressure I have. That's the biggest, I don't know if it's a pressure, if it's a fear.
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything wrong. And it's not, people think you do things wrong, but for that child at that time, do they need just to go for a walk and a talk? Do they need that kind of tactile kind of intervention as well? Or, do you need to leave them alone completely? And it's picking that right situation in a split second. And that's the biggest pressure I want. And it's not for myself, but it's for their well-being, really. And I think that's just the way I am. And I just want to make sure that they are happy and as secure and as happy they can be. And I'm on the field. Am I doing enough for my team to make sure that we can be as successful? So it does overlap, but in a bit of a very weird link.
Yeah. Does that ever manifest in kind of physical feelings or emotions? Because I don't know if I'm asking that question in the right way, in a sense of how do you feel pressure? So when you're in a scenario of, I don't know, a tricky game or a challenging scenario at work, are you consciously thinking about, I want to get this right? And what does that physically feel like? Or what emotions do you think you might experience during that?
I think because of the way Ross helped me before the World Cup, I'm very good at reflecting. So in the moment you do it and you hope you make the right decision in the moment, don't you? But I've cried. I've cried a couple of times. But from frustration. So reflection is massive for me. So in a game, that's easy to do. You can watch analysis. So I have a really funny thing on the pitch that Ross taught me. So when I make a mistake, I'll drop a ball. So say if I did that in the 10th minute, it would ruin me for the rest of the game. So I have this thing now in rugby where if I make a mistake, and it's quite a personal thing, but I'm going in for it now, and I will walk in a circle. So I will essentially walk out of the room and walk back in again, and I have to leave that mistake at the door. And that's the same thing I do here. I reflect and then I think I'm great at talking to people now. I never used to be. But I share an office with Sally, who teaches English, and I'll sit and I'll just say, this happened today. I'm not sure if I did it right. Or I'll go speak to somebody else and talk through. And 9 times out of 10, it's just as soon as you've spoken, I've talked it through and you're like, maybe I wouldn't have done that, or actually it was fine. You feel loads better, don't you? And I think if you take that away, and I think that's down to Ross in the 2017. is reflection is massive for me. And I think that, and it kind of doesn't right wrongs, does it? But it makes sure that you appreciate what you've done, and whether you've done it right or wrong, you know, next time you may do it differently or not. And that's both on the field and in the classroom, I think.
I love that strategy of walking around and just sort of taking yourself mentally out of the space you're in. I'm definitely going to try that next time I'm in that challenging situation myself. It resonates with me quite a lot, that.
Was that something that you came up yourself, or was that something that he gave you?
No, so we had to think about it. So some people, you can see, and now I know about it, I see it a lot more. So if you watch like professional rugby, some people will wipe their hands as if they're cleaning their hands. Some people might grab the badge. Some people actually physically wipe their hands on the floor. Like it was kind of a case of finding what suited me. And I tried loads of things out. And one day I remember dropping the ball and I walked away from it, had a little bit of a word with myself, and then walked back in and I explained this to him. And then he kind of explained the analogy of it. And it's something that I shared with my England team, because I said, look, this is going to have to be my strategy now. You know, we used to share quite a bit with each other. And I remember when I think we were playing against the Cook Islands, and Lois Forsell, who I've played with for years, I walked out, she was like, will you walk back in and out a bit quicker? We need to go. And I'm like, I'm having a reflection moment here. So even that, even people know about it, they still let you do it, which is great. But yeah, I mean, I don't need to go around 4 classrooms before I do it. It's literally a few steps, three or 4 steps around in a circle. So
is that what?
Yeah, it works wonders.
No, that's what tennis players will do with towels, isn't it? So when they go back and they go for a towel, they don't necessarily need that towel.
Potentially, yeah.
When they go back,
it's that symbolic message,
rub themselves with the towel or wipe themselves down or something with a towel. It could be something along those lines. That's Nadal, every time, it was a bit like Johnny Wilkinson, who set himself up for a kick the same every time. Nadal he has like a routine, so he has a process going through. Which I suppose when we're talking, it's not the same because we're currently talking about mistakes. I'd imagine with Nadal and Johnny, that process is to reduce that pressure and to make it more of a systematic process, so that it takes that emotion sort of out of it, I reckon, at that sort of big level.
I was listening. It's interesting you spoke about Johnny Wilkinson there. I was listening to one of the other podcasts.
Is that the only person that any rugby league fan knows who plays rugby? Sorry, other rugby union players are out there, but I don't know them.
Surely you know Farrell.
Oh yeah, Farrell.
Is he the Welsh guy? Mate, I do not know rugby union at all.
Sorry.
I mean, what I was going to say is it's interesting that you mentioned Johnny Wilkinson. I was listening to one of the other podcasts that are out and about rugby the other day, and somebody that had played with him said that he put so much pressure on himself that it restricted his kind of performance. And the pressure that then came as a result of that, he said when he played with him and he felt trust within his team, he kind of just opened up and was much more expressive as a player. So I suppose the question I'm going to ask you is, how important is it that people know those little things that you do to reset yourself? And how important is trust in that aspect? Because if I can understand from my perspective, because being in a team, I put pressure on myself more when I don't trust the people around me as much. And I think that's what they were explaining when they were talking, when they were explaining about playing with Johnny. How important do you think that is, from your perspective?
Oh, it's massive. So I didn't really appreciate this, but Chris Chapman, who was my only England coach, he was about marginal gains. So it would be down to, he would tell a half. So it was like, Danica likes the ball around chest height. And I was like, do I? And it was like, he did 10 passes at waist height and 10 passes at chest height, and I'm more successful with a slightly higher ball. It was like, so you need to know that she likes the ball higher up, and therefore she's going to catch it more often, and therefore she's not going to walk around more often. And it was like, wow, like that's a real coach, isn't it? That's somebody that can pick that up so quickly. Yeah. And so it was a case of, you had to go around, and it was one of these like sessions, like a circle session, where everyone had to say, so one of the halves preferred it when you were quite flat with her, another half preferred you being wider out. And it's quite difficult because essentially then you're learning so many different parts of people, but then that's where the trust comes, isn't it? Because as soon as you start reacting to that and helping them, they trust you more. And I think I would say that off the back of 2017, that's the most I've ever trusted a team.
Yeah.
And I see the New England squad being announced, and I don't know if I don't trust them. I've never played with half of them, so I don't know. But I'm like, is that a good enough squad? Do they know each other well enough? Are they being taught the same? Are they being coached the same? And I think that makes a massive impact on how you play, because I think the 2017, we lost a game which we shouldn't have lost. and we had a big circle. It was a case of why. And one of the girls said, I didn't trust my inside person.
Wow.
And it was kind of like a revelation, but also like, but why? It wasn't like harsh. It was like, why didn't you trust them?
Yeah,
and it was like, I haven't played with them in the people move around. It was just simple as I haven't played with them inside me before.
Yeah.
And it was like, it makes a massive difference. So if you can just concentrate on your game and trust everyone around you, then you've only got you to worry about. I think how you play. So
I think that transfers to football as well. So you talk about, great strike partnerships in football where they'll always say, well, I trust them. I know where they are without looking. And then that kind of also, I think, in a way explains how we see people like Torres going from Liverpool to Chelsea for all that money and it not clicking.
Not working.
So, how does a player who was at the peak of his career, who was scoring, fantastic and frequent goals for Liverpool, go to Chelsea, who's just, at that point, they were almost level in terms of going from one team to another. How does he not score goals? How is he such a, in the media's term, a flop? And it could come down just to that. The club doesn't fit. He doesn't feel trusted. He doesn't trust his players around him. He doesn't feel like he's connected to them. He doesn't feel like he's connected to the club. It starts to, when you look at it, I think, it starts to make perfect sense about this pressure and about how trust and relationships play such a massive part in that.
A drawback to it's completely a million miles away, obviously, from playing in the Super League and Premier League football, but a drawback to being at college, I play with mates that I went to school with, and I play with friends that I now play first team rugby with. And when we were at college, we were probably the most successful team in the north of England. But we spent every minute of every day together.
Yeah.
And even, the transference of third, maybe half of the players in that team threw up into senior rugby, and it's not the same because of the mix of other people within that and people coming in and out, and you don't have that then trust and relationship in the same extent, which then in turn knocks on to kind of people putting that pressure. I feel I put pressure on myself when I haven't got that trust, like I said previously.
Yeah.
Danica, I'm curious to know, you've explained really well how you've learnt some things from the psychologist, in particular in rugby, to help you deal with pressure in rugby. Is there anything you've learned from him or from playing rugby to help you deal with pressure that you've transferred into the classroom? And equally, have you learned anything working with children in SEMH that you've taken into rugby that's helped you in rugby?
Yeah, I think it's more so what I've learned from here to take me into rugby than the other way around, really. And the biggest thing I think is because I struggle with people that don't work hard in rugby. So I don't understand that if you're on my team, I'm going to put my all in. It's that kind of like,
laziness.
I've got your back, so why have you not got mine? And I think that, the different pressures people have, the people in different environments, and honestly, it's only been this year since I've really started to understand the different environments that I've kind of appreciated that. And I've been the voice of the reason sometimes, and the coaches have gone, why are you not working harder? And I just said, have you stopped and spoken to people about what's going on?
Brilliant.
So I said to one of the coaches rang me, and she was like, what? And I just said, I am really struggling with working from home. We were doing home visits and whatever else and phone calls. I'm really struggling with motivation. I said, have you stopped and asked people how they are? Rather than just saying you've not done your Tuesday training, your Thursday training. And that's just a small example. But, we've got in my team, I'm playing with 16 and 17-year-olds. So 1 minute, I go from teaching here, and 2 hours later, I'm on a field with a similar age kid, basically, but they're not. They're my teammate, and language is different. The way we treat them is different. And I've had to remember that a lot of people remember that just think that they're the teammates, but I kind of think I'm much more conscious of the fact that they want to be teammates. They want to be older. They want to be part of the group that go out socially. And I've kind of adapted myself completely. And not in a negative, it doesn't have any derogatory effect on my rugby or how I am. But I think it makes them feel a lot better. We had one of the girls that was 17 and she was really struggling for training. And this time last year, I was horrible to her. But I didn't appreciate why she wasn't working hard enough, why she wasn't doing something. But she must be 18 actually, because she just found drinking. She just started going out. Mm-hmm. So you can understand why. I love more than anybody. I'm missing the pub a bit. But I was like, I need to stop saying to her, you're unfit, you're not working hard enough, to saying, Ellie, mate, do you fancy going for a run together, or do you fancy doing some extras together? Mm. And it ended up that I was I had to. It's more that it's that reflection thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
I reflect on how I am.
You've got a better understanding of why people are the way they are, and you've transferred that into your personal life and into your rugby career.
I think it's really sad though that it's taken me so long. And I think back, I've never been, only more so when I've been in more of a senior role in rugby league. Of some of the older ones and classes experience now, having been in the World Cup and stuff. And I really took that role for granted, and I'm a bit annoyed at myself that, and why should I have realised it before working? I've come from mainstream where the pressures are totally different in the sense that it's just academical, isn't it? Academical?
It's like with anything.
It's academic.
If you're not exposed to it or informed by it, then you've got no reference point, have you? And a lot of the things that I say to people now and I do with people, I wouldn't have done previous to working where I work now, and with the knowledge and skills that I've developed from working with children with mental health issues. Thanks for that.
Context, isn't it? I think context is massive.
Yeah.
Such an impact on empathy, understanding, and then obviously that has an impact on people's or your own response to something.
Yeah, it's been massive. It's like I always think about the grand final last year where we beat Castleford. They'd come into this grand final having lost one game all season. It's a very very young squad though. That I think the average age there must have been about 20, 21. And I think it was 10-all at half time, and they went into the changing rooms shouting and screaming at each other. Whereas we went into the changing rooms, well, it's 10-all. We're still in it. And it was that
mindset.
It was really weird because I'm in the middle of a grand final. We want to win, but there's also a part of me that wants to go to there's one of the girls that I always check in with her after a game now. And I go into the tunnel next to her and I want to go, it's okay, you're doing all right. That's not my job at that point. And I think the way I am as a teacher now takes over everything that I do. And it's really weird because 18 months ago in that set, I'd have walked past her, I'd have not laughed at her, but taken it as a real upper hand that she's losing her mind a little bit and I'm complete control. Whereas now I've got that kind of empathy, and I want to make sure I'm like, no, mate, you're actually doing all right. It'll be fine. And it's weird. So I think as my rugby career comes to an end, I don't mind doing it as much. I'm not under pressure. I'm not fighting for a World Cup place or anything like that. So I feel like I can do now, as long as I'm still doing what I need to do for my team.
If you were to ever to go into coaching or anything like that, I'm not sure if that's something that you've got your eyes set on in the future. Do you think it'll impact on the way that you coach and the way that you support players and people that you work with?
Yeah, I don't ever think I could be a successful coach. I wouldn't be successful myself, but I don't think of a high level team, because there needs to be a fine line between somebody needs to be, that kind of social and emotional kind of person to help out. And then there is an element where you do need somebody to be a bit cutthroat and a bit harsh, because that's sport and that's elite sport for you. If you're not good enough because as a team you didn't gel or you didn't do what you were told, that's because you weren't good enough at that point. It's not to do with, you might not just done a play properly, or you might not have spoken to each other properly, or whatever. I think there's a really fine line in sport between the two. And I don't think I love teaching because it's about exploration and finding out and seeing what ticks, whereas sport is very black and white. You have to be good in order to win.
Well, I think we're going to draw together there and come to a bit of a close. I don't know about you guys, but I thank you for that.
That was phenomenal, honestly.
Unbelievable.
No, thank you.
It's been a real insight into kind of your journey through rugby and slipping into SCMH teaching and covering that sort of topic of pressure as well. So I thank you from all of us for giving up your time. What we'll do is...
No, thank you. It's been good.
I think we're going to go on to Luke's line, but there's been a bit of pressure because I think halfway through, towards the end of this, I've just looked at Luke and gone, "Mind, have you got a Luke line?" And he's kind of just gone, "Ah!"
Pressure was on to get Luke's line.
That was not done on purpose, by the way. That's just another insight into Mitchell's organisation.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Do you know what it was? Honest, Danica, I found you so fascinating that I didn't even say much in that video because I was just engrossed by what you were saying. Anyway, Luke's line is usually quite short, but I'll make it a big one seeing as I've not said much on this one. Here we go. Pressure is only what you make of it and what you put on yourself. Don't ever let the pressure exceed the pleasure. Pressure is a privilege. It only comes to those who earn it. Pressure has the power to create a diamond, but it has to be the right pressure.
Wow.
Ooh.
Nice.
Like that one.
Nice. I like it.
Right. Thank you for listening again, guys. Follow us on Twitter. It's @3whippet. It's available on all or the majority of wherever you find your podcasts. You'll be able to find them.
On some good outlets and some rubbish ones too.
Yeah, definitely. Follow us on Instagram. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, etc. And get in touch if you've got any feedback or you want to be a Whippet. Please get in touch. Thank you again for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thanks.
Cheers.